Welcome to BKL Nightly. This is the Game Day Recap edition for an incredible, disappointing, heartbreaking loss for the Buffalo Bills. 33-30 in overtime. Their season is over, losing in the divisional round to the Denver Broncos. I'm Thad Brown. This is Josh Reed. Caleb Carr will join us a little later on. Josh, there's a whole lot of topics to talk about with this game, but the one that everybody's going to talk about for years and years is the three calls at the end of the game, the Brandon Cooks interception and the two pass interferences. Now that you've had a little time to digest it, wherever you want to go, what's your take from how that was officiated at the end?
Well, before we start leading anybody to believe that we think that just because the calls went against the Bills, that's the reason they lost. Look, the Bills did enough damage to themselves. The 5 turnovers, you probably shouldn't win a game if you turn the ball over 5 times and lose the turnover margin by 4. But the 3 calls at the end of the game, I mean, they were borderline and could have gone either way. And they all went against the Bills. The couple of pass interference calls, one I thought was iffy, and the other one I thought probably was a good call. But the Brandon Cooks, was it a catch? Was it an interception? Was he down? That going against the Bills, I mean, that's the game right there. Because if that's ruled a catch, and the fact that they sped through, I felt like they sped through the review process. How many times are we at games and the play on the call on the field is clear as day. They go under the hood. 10 minutes later, they come out with the obvious solution. Why they didn't take a little bit longer, I'm glad Sean McDermott called the timeout to try to get them to pump the brakes, take a look at it. I still felt like they just rushed through that. I would have liked to see them take a little longer to make sure they got the call 1,000% correct. And look, at the end of the day, it might have been the right call still, but just take your time.
I don't know about the right call, but I think certainly the call that would have been made, even if they had had an hour to look at it. A couple things about this. Number one, quickly the pass interferences, I'm with you. The Taron Johnson one is probably a bad call. The Trey White one is probably a good call. Taron doesn't matter because there's a roughing the passer on the play anyway. And even if you don't call the Trey White one, the Broncos are still kind of sort of in field goal range. Would the Brandon Cooks play? I have spent a long time here, quite a few minutes, talking with other media about the play. We keep pulling our phones out. We're looking at this still frame and that still frame. Back, play it forward, stop it. What do you think of this? Well, then this happens. The fact that we're doing that is enough reason to warrant the league taking more time and more effort to make sure that you had exhausted every possible resource you could to figure out whether that call is right or not. And number two, the thing that Sean McDermott said about these guys have been out here for 3 hours. We've been at this all year long. The league needs to take a step back from this and understand that replay is not simply about A or B. Replay is about giving the fans, and maybe more importantly, the coaches and players, as much comfort as you can provide that we are doing everything we possibly can to get it right. Even if we might feel like, I took one look at it and I'm pretty sure about it, even if that's correct, because of the way it's being viewed, take the time. Respect the players and the coaches and the fans who pay money to come out and watch your product and participate in your product, that you are doing all you can to make it as above board as possible.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent point. Even if it's just to let the players and coaches think, okay, well, they looked at it extensively. Even to give them that thought in the back of their head instead of making them wonder at the end of the day, did they look at it long enough? Because that's not something you want to leave up in the air.
Let's move on to what really decided this game for the Bills, and that was the 5 turnovers, 4.5, 5 turnovers, whatever you want to call it. I think the more concerning part was not that they turned the ball over so many times, but the people who turned it over are the two arguably best players in the team, James Cook and Josh Allen, and the guys who, if you were ever going to succeed, they have to touch the ball all day long, and they were the ones that gave it away over and over.
Yeah, to win playoff games on the road against really good teams, and that's who you're going to face in the postseason. You can't have 5 turnovers, and you need your elite players, Josh Allen, James Cook, to play at an elite level. Not just 2 quarters, not 3 quarters, but the entire 4 quarters. And if it goes to overtime, you need them to be elite in overtime, and not just the turnovers for Josh Allen, who we heard from in the post-game press conference, super emotional, taking all the blame on his shoulders, which you would expect him to. And quite frankly, look, there are a lot of other guys who needed to make more plays than they did. But Josh is the guy. I mean, this is the reigning MVP. You expect to see an MVP-type level performance on a stage like this, and it just didn't happen.
Allen needs to play better. Cook needs to play better. And for Cook, this is something that's been going on all year. He's been a guy that leads the NFL in fumbles. And it wasn't just, again, that the turnovers happened they were bad. The one at the end of the first half is as terrible as it gets. That goes back to rookie year Josh Allen. And I didn't have a problem with the Bills giving him the ball there because you trust the guy who just won MVP to make the right play. And he did not in that spot, and it cost the Bills a huge 3 points. The interception, the deep one over the middle that we were talking about with Curtis Samuel, that's just a bad throw. You need to put that ball in a spot where your receiver can make a play. Allen gave that interception away. So it was
Dawson
stuff like
Knox.
that. And there was an interception
in overtime.
Right before the tying field goal in regulation.
Yep.
Dawson Knox is wide open. Josh Allen missed that too. Josh Allen picked a bad day to have a bad day. And that's what it was. And even though he was fantastic otherwise. Let's talk about some of the long-term ramifications of this. And I know we're hours after watching this thing happen. Where do you come out on what this does for the Bills in terms of what everybody thinks about them, what they think about themselves, and the chances they have to, at some point, finally, with Josh Allen and Sean McDermott, get over this hump?
Yeah, I think that there'll be a growing sense, in particular nationally, when looking at this Bills organization is they're never going to get it done. They're never going to get over the hump. I think that's going to become the national narrative. I'm not sure if that's going to be the local narrative as much because, we always go back to, look, I know that Josh had a really bad game, but we've seen Josh have plenty of spectacular games and knowing that the cape is under there still. I mean, look, he still had a really good season. But the national narrative is going to be, okay, now maybe the Denver Broncos are even better than them. Now there's a list of all these things. I don't think Denver's better than them. In fact, I think if they play this game 10 times, the Bills probably win 9. But guess what?
At least 8. Yeah,
Denver only needed to be good, better than them on Saturday. That was it. I think that they're going to have to address this wide receiver thing. They just have to. I know that's something that's been a narrative, the last several off seasons, but I mean, coming into this game, if I told you we're going to see a McCole Hardman touchdown and a Keon Coleman touchdown, I mean, are you kidding me? Of course, then again, on the other sideline, the Broncos had a big man touchdown catch. So we saw a little bit of everything in this one.
Yeah, if you hit the touchdown parlay in this game, you are not working the rest of your life. Couple things for me. Number one, the Bills keep stacking up giant missed chances. And this is going to be a giant missed chance. Not because of what the national narrative was, that there was no Mahomes, no Burrow. They were the better team today. And they had a good chance to be the better team next week. I don't care who wins on Sunday between the Patriots and the Texans. This was an opportunity with a team that really had kind of played a game last week in Jacksonville. They had put 60 good minutes together on the road against a really good team. And they gave this away. And that's going to sting all year long. You're right about what they need to do. It's hard to digest the fact that we're pretty much sitting at the same areas the Bills need help in year after year. Receiver and pass rush, because that didn't hit it all today either. So it feels like we're spinning the same wheels. But to that point, there will be more chances. It feels like after 13 seconds and after this game, which might need a nickname, frankly, that the Bills will never get a chance. And then, like you said, the narrative will be they're never going to do it. They're going to have more chances.
Oh, yeah.
Josh Allen's that good. If Sean McDermott is still here, and I see no reason why he wouldn't be, he proved a lot in this game that he can get it done defensively as a head coach. This team will have more opportunities. But this one is going to sting as much as anyone they've had in their history with these two guys. All right, for Josh Reed, I'm Thad Brown. We're going to have more coming up after this, but right now let's go back to you. Welcome back to BKL Nightly, the Game Day Recap edition. I'm now joined by Caleb Carr to talk about Bills and Broncos. And Caleb, like I said many times tonight already, we are going to spend days, weeks, months debating the calls by the officials in overtime at the very end of this game. I'm sure you have plenty to say about it. So wherever you want to go, what was your takeaway from the pass interferences and the Brandon Cooks interception play?
I'll start with the 2 pass interferences at the end because I think those are for me at least, the more simple ones. The first one, correct me if I'm wrong, Taron Johnson was the first one, and then the second one was Trey White. The Taron Johnson one, I think, is maybe the more iffy one. I don't know. But to me, the Trey White one was easy. I mean, as a the inner Bills fan in me, I mean, I'll be honest. I yelled at the TV. I yelled, "That's not a pass interference," when I saw the replay. And then I sat there for a second and I thought about it and I tried to use my newly acquired media brain, and I realized, no, that it's pass interference. And it was. I think they both were pass interferences. They both were good calls. I think that they are maybe the Taron Johnson one more than the Trey White one. They're ones that, one of those that you could see getting called, one of those you could see not getting called. We've seen those in the NFL before where it's like, I get why you called it, but I could also get why you didn't call it. But I think they were both. I think the officials were right to call both of them. When it comes to the Brandon Cooks play, that one I'm a little less confident in. I thought, and I saw lots of replays, I thought that he for sure had controlled the ball. And, shout out to Gene Sarator, the CBS kind of rule analyst that they bring in. He does a great job. And I kind of trust what he says a little bit more than what I think, if that makes sense. And he seemed to think that there was definitely not control. But I just can't get over the feeling that I felt like he did have control going down to the ground. And if he has control and he takes his 2 steps and then he goes down to the ground, that's a catch. That should be ruled a catch. But I could definitely see how there were some camera angles that felt like maybe the defender had a hand in there and the ball was still moving a little bit. Again, I think that's one of those that, that's a 50-50. It could have gone either way. Like, if they would have ruled it a catch, I think it would have been good. And it's one of those that whatever you rule on the field, you kind of just have to go with because there's not enough. You go back and you just don't know. And we've seen that just with Buffalo. We've seen that a ton, especially these last few weeks. That's like, well, I could see how it could go that way. But since it was ruled on the field I don't think there's enough to overturn it to the other way. But to stay with that Brandon Cooks, I agree with everything that Sean McDermott said in the post game. He talked a little bit about how he didn't like how they handled it. Not that he disagreed with the call necessarily, although I do believe at the end he said he didn't think it was a catch. But he did say, he goes, either way, I don't like the way that they handled it. And there was a lot of confusion, even from the broadcast end. There was a lot of confusion about what was going on and was it a catch? Was it not a catch? Why wasn't it a catch? There was a lot of confusion. And it did seem like McDermott said that they were just like, all right, Broncos ball. And it's like, whoa, hold up. We are in overtime in the divisional round of the playoffs, and we are now at the Broncos have the ball for the second time. They win with a score. We got to look at things. And he can't throw the challenge flag, but the officials and the people in New York, they got to kind of, since the coaches can't throw challenge flags, they got to support them a little bit and be like, hey, we got to take another look at this just real quick. But I don't necessarily think anything that the officials, when it comes to calls, I just don't know if anything they called was wrong. It just sucks that there were so many kind of teetering 50-50 calls, and they all seem to go in the Broncos' favor.
A lot of good points there. I agree with almost all that you're saying. I think the Taron Johnson one probably, I don't know if I would have called that, but with the Joey Bosa roughing the passer penalty on the play, it almost doesn't matter whether that was called. Let me go into the Zapruder level analysis of the Brandon Cooks play. And look, it took decades to kind of have an idea what happened to JFK. We're not going to figure this out in an hour. But from what I've seen already, I don't think there's a convincing piece of video that tells me he had the ball. And to your point, that's what you need here because it was called an interception on the field. If it's called a catch on the field, they ain't turning that thing over to an interception either. It's staying on the field. I don't think, and I know there's been a few still frames out there that have said, look, knee down, ball under control, but you can never really see the ball because it's in Brandon Cook's breadbasket with the defensive back right on top of him. There's just no clear angle for it. So I think at the end of the day, even if they did take as much time as would have satisfied Sean McDermott, I think it probably would have stayed with that call. How much, real quick on this for you, how much does the calls taint what was a really cool game? I know the Bills didn't play well, we'll get into all that, but just real quick, how much does this hurt the product that you watched in this game?
I mean, it definitely affects it a little bit because now you're even let's just keep the Taron Johnson pass interference in there because, like you said, you got the Joey Bosa penalty. So let's just keep that in there. That's still a pretty deep field goal. That's still a field goal that you're sitting there and you're like, okay, he could miss this. If you're a Bills fan watching, you're still locked in. Now I'll say, as a Bills fan, as a media member who had other stuff that he had to do, when Lutz hit that chip shot, I watched only the snap and the kick. I didn't watch anything before. I didn't watch anything after. Now, if it was a 50-yarder, I would have been locked in for 2 minutes before and after. For sure, I would have been locked in. So I think the Trey White one definitely kind of hinders it a little bit because it makes a great game kind of like, okay, you know the Broncos are going to win no matter what. There's no way they're missing a chip shot. As for the Brandon Cooks, I mean, honestly, I think it went right along with the game script. Just another turnover, just another mistake. I think it kind of just followed how the rest of the game was going. I don't think I'd say anything was majorly hindered, I think is the word you used. I don't know if I'd say that, other than maybe the Trey White one making it just a little bit less interesting in the final play.
So the one, I think the reason I want to talk about that just real quick, and a couple thoughts here, and then we'll move on. There's been a lot of complaint from fans and media about replay to begin with, in that it happens too often, it takes too long, and not to excuse what the league did in this spot, but this is kind of how we land there. You know, the league will think they spent time putting in the sky judge or the automatic review, to where sometimes the ref on the field doesn't have to go under the hood, take a look at a screen, delay the game. They can just be like, oh, that was wrong, and we'll move on. And while this one should have taken more time, the effort the league is making to make fans happy about how little replay is used probably contributes to this happening tonight. Again, doesn't excuse it, but just a thought I had coming out of this for sure. Any thoughts on that as well? You want to move on?
I think I agree with you, but just quickly, as a fan myself and just like someone who enjoys watching the NFL, that makes sense week 7 in the regular season. You know, I like, okay, week 7,
right.
It's a 4:05 game. Let's just move it. You know, what do we got? The Raiders and the Giants. Let's just move. I don't need this. We don't need this. It's not going to affect anything. But in the divisional round game, in overtime, game on the line, I think you take the extra minute, and I think everybody is okay with you taking the extra minute.
I think it's a great way to sum it up. All right, let's move on now. Turnovers were obviously the reason the Bills lost, not the officials. The officials were the thing at the end that kind of finished it. But when you have that many turnovers, as we talked about earlier in the show, the margin for error gets so small that you need those breaks. You need the calls to go your way, and they did not. James Cook had a good game otherwise. Josh Allen, to be honest, other than the turnovers, had some good moments too. I think we'll get to Cook in a minute. But with Allen, how disappointing a performance is this from your point of view?
I'm going to put it up there as pretty disappointing. You know, I agree with what you said. Outside of the turnovers, he did have a good game. You know, 283 passing yards, 3 passing touchdowns. He picked up 66 yards on the ground. He had some big rushing plays. He had some great passes. I mean, that touchdown pass to Dalton Kincaid in the fourth quarter, I believe it was the beginning of the fourth quarter. That was a thing of beauty. That was a great touchdown pass. He had a couple really nice balls. I mean, even the Brandon Cooks ball at the end, although Cooks didn't necessarily catch it, I still thought it was a pretty good ball. It's a 50-50. He put that, the defender didn't pick the pass. He grabbed it from Brandon Cooks. Allen put that in a place where only Cooks could get it, and I thought that was a great pass. But the problem with it is the mistakes he made were huge. You know, the Brandon Cooks interception I can kind of wipe away. I can push off to the side. But that fumble at the end of the second half to give the Broncos, that's an inexcusable fumble. Then you come out in your first because the first play out of the half was a handoff. Second play is a pass. To now fumble again, I mean, you can't. Not only is it a fumble and it's bad and it gives them points, but it's right after you just had an atrocious fumble. It's 2 back-to-back fumbles for Allen. That's not good. His other interception I didn't think definitely wasn't great. But not nearly as bad as those 2 fumbles. Those 2 fumbles for me, especially that one at the end of half. I mean, we see it's a 3-point game, and that gave them an extra 3 points. I mean, he gave them an extra 6 points with those 2 fumbles, and that's just something that you cannot excuse, in my opinion.
It's just so heartbreaking from the Bills' point of view that the number one player on your team, the guy who has been the one you've built your success around, was the one who was at the top of the list of who let you down. And at the end of the first half, I didn't have a problem with the Bills giving Josh Allen a chance. If anybody can get a field goal out of 16 seconds and no timeouts, it would have been Josh Allen. But he has got to know better than to put that ball in harm's way. And you can make an argument that this game was decided in like a 5-play sequence around halftime. The touchdown they gave up to Bo Nix, the deep ball, that made it 17-10. The Josh Allen fumble, the field goal to make it 20-10. And then the other fumble coming out of half. And really the defense did a good job keeping that to a 3 and not a 7. But there were too many instances where Allen did not even come close to living up to the billing as the best quarterback in the NFL, which is what I think he's at, considering where Pat Mahomes has played the last few years. And coming off the game that happened last week for the Bills, that game was won because Josh Allen was clean and Trevor Lawrence was not. This game was lost in large part because Bo Nix was clean and Josh Allen was not. Let's move to the run game real quick, unless you want to hit on Josh Allen anymore here.
No, we're good. Let's go run.
All right. Run game was good. I mean, bottom line. Now, look, James Cook had the fumble, and James Cook fumbling is something we're probably going to talk about all offseason because of how detrimental it was for the Bills this year. But in this game, boy, Caleb, that run game was back to where we've seen it be all year.
Oh, he had some great runs. I mean, he broke out for 20-plus a couple times. It felt like every time he touched the ball, he was picking up at least a first down. Maybe it was getting close, or at least giving him a second and short. Like, he was finding holes. He was doing really, really good. They had that toss play down. They ran that toss play a lot last week against Jacksonville, and they went back to it a couple times this week as well. And also give credit to guys like Spencer Brown. I mean, I saw Spencer Brown lay out a ton of big blocks. I thought the offensive line did a great job protecting or giving Cook some running lanes, and then he just hit them like he's done all year. He even made a couple plays in the passing game. He had a couple big catches for big yards. I thought he did good. Allen broke outside the pocket a couple times. They had a couple designed runs for him that he picked up a couple, and then obviously the tush push. I mean, we saw it just work a ton last week, and it continued. I haven't seen this Bills team go to the tush push as much as they have these past two games ever, I think.
It was crazy how many times they were just in 3rd and 1 to be able to even attempt that play, too. Other guys I want to spotlight quick from the positive point of view. Dalton Kincaid had a great second half. Invisible in the first half, but really good in the second half. Deion Walker, impactful plays. The interception was amazing. And I thought Joe Brady had a really good game, too. The hook and ladder, he's hit that 3 times now. How about this, Caleb? Here's a crazy stat. The Bills have hit the hook and ladder for first downs in key spots of 3 different games and still lost all 3. But that doesn't mean Joe Brady didn't have a good game. I thought he did. He had a couple other calls I liked. And the thing I want to talk about here quick, not quick, but you brought it up when we were getting ready to do this show. The way the defense played in the second half, that's the reason this game got to overtime. Sean McDermott, up until the last drive, had a masterclass going of dominating a really good offensive mind in Sean Payton.
Yeah, I thought that the defense was the only reason that this game was close. I mean, especially with the number of, I think we just mentioned it, out of halftime, Josh Allen fumbles it on the second play, and they hold them to 2 yards and a field goal. They got, obviously, Deion Walker gets that interception, and that interception sets the Bills up in pretty good. I believe they were at Denver's 40-yard line, or Denver's 36-yard line, I believe. Like, they had decent field position, and then Josh Allen throws another interception. So I thought the defense did a really good job. They forced a couple punts, especially in that 3rd and 4th quarter. Now, obviously, they let up some stuff. I thought that touchdown right before the second half, like you said, that was one, that deep ball. That's one that you probably can't let up. And then, obviously, that drive in the 4th quarter to give them the touchdown to go up 3 there. That one was a tough drive as well. But I thought, especially given the amount of tough situations that the offense put the defense in, they stepped up and had a very good game.
I'm glad you brought up the injuries, too, because they were a subtle key factor in this game. Cam Lewis goes out for a handful of plays under the first half. The Broncos burn them for a touchdown, the Bills. Trey White leaves the game for one play at the very end, and the Broncos go right after Dane Jackson for another big-time touchdown. Dorian Williams getting hurt early in the game made Balin Spector play a lot. The Connor McGovern injury, he missed one drive, and there was a bobbled shotgun snap that might have cost the Bills an opportunity to score a touchdown. This is what we talk about, trying to get the bye to avoid having to pick up all those nicks, and a lot of that was in this game, but those injuries certainly played a big part in this.
Yeah, and that's something that the Bills have been suffering with all season. I mean, especially on that first play, the opening kickoff, Dorian Williams goes down. I mean, the first thing I thought was, in the offseason, Bills got to take a look at this training staff. They got to take a look at who's in the medical tent, because I don't know what's going on. And then Ed Oliver came out with a knee injury at one point, and it's like, what? He's in there with a hurt bicep, and now his knee's hurt. What's going on here? Everyone was just getting beat up. And I mean, listen, the Bills have had a very long season. They've played some really physical teams. They're a really physical team themselves. And when you're physical yourself, you hit people harder, and it sometimes comes back on you. But that's something that, whether it be something going on within or whether it just be bad luck, they've been hurt with injuries all season.
Want to mention one more positive in this game, Matt Prater, who hit the game-tying field goal from 50 late. He's done everything the Bills have asked of him this year. Heck of a find for the Bills late in the year when they needed to find a kicker kind of last minute. We got about a minute to go here. Bills seasons are always essentially viewed by what happens in this playoff game. How do you view the Bills coming out of this, whether it's been changed or altered, what we think of this franchise and its direction as a whole?
I think they're close. I think they've been close. I think they continue to be close. And there's just one major thing that keeps them from being able to get there, and it's the fact that they ain't got no wide receivers. Not a single one. I was talking to some of the people around the news building after the game, and one of the things I kept bringing up was games on the line. Third down, in overtime, and Brandon Cooks is the guy that you're going to. Now, listen, I love Brandon Cooks. He's played great these past few games. He had a couple big catches today. He obviously is a big reason why the Bills beat Jacksonville last week. But I don't think he's the guy you want to be going to overtime, game on the line. They need some studs. I mean, Khalil Shakir had a good game, as he does pretty much every week. But other than him, wide receivers just weren't a factor today.
I think you're right about the close part, and they remain close. But it's frustrating how they remain in the same spot. They really are spinning their wheels. We've talked about receivers multiple years. They'll need that again. Pass rush, same thing. This is going to be a chance it's going to sting for a long time because of who was left in the AFC. Not no Mahomes, Burrow, but because the Bills I think they were better than this Broncos team and would have at least been a pick-em with whoever wins the New England-Houston game. This will hurt for a long time, but the Bills are close, and I think there will be more chances. That's going to do it for us this game and this season. Thanks very much for watching BKL Nightly's Game Day Recap. For Caleb, Carr, and Josh Reed, I'm Thad Brown. Remember, you can always find this on YouTube and on wherever you get your podcasts. We'll see you again next season.